It is time to remove the cancerous tumour that is the ECHR from British society. A proud sovereign nation such as Great Britain should never have to be bound by the rulings of an anonymous foreign judge who conducts secret proceedings in the dead of night. This has happened on Rwanda flights. We will never know who made the last-minute decision to block the flights, but it is believed to be a judge from either Russia, Hungary or Liechtenstein. But on another night, it could be a judge from Azerbaijan, North Macedonia, San Marino, Moldova or Lithuania. One person from San Marino, a country with a population of around 33,500 people, could make a decision that would impact the 67 million or so people living in the UK. They make decisions like not allowing us to deport a man called Wabi Mohammed, who wanted to blow up London. He's a Somalian, and we couldn't get rid of him because he might face inhumane treatment in the country he left so he could come and grace the streets of Britain. Or the Nigerian child rapist, Akindoyin Akinshipe. After he attacked a 13-year-old girl, the ECHR said deporting him would breach his right to a private and family life. Of course, this is only a massive problem because our weak-willed Prime Minister and other politicians don't want to ignore the ECHR, unlike France, who deported a terrorist to Uzbekistan. They did it, and lo and behold, the sky did not fall in on France. Their equivalent of the Guardian newspaper did not implode, causing a nuclear chain reaction that reduced Paris to smouldering rubble. Everything was fine. But it's not all about the borders. Elderly British veterans could die behind bars because the now disgraced and despised former leader of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, is taking us to court to keep prosecuting veterans for things they may or may not have done during the Troubles. Meanwhile, members of the IRA are allowed to walk free. How is that fair? What about the latest climate lunacy? The ECHR ruled that countries like Switzerland, Britain, must do more to protect their citizens from the consequences of climate change. They sided with Swedish school truant Greta Thunberg and 2,000 geriatric Swiss women. This means governments now have to adopt more ambitious climate policies. Get stuffed. Our politicians are too weak to do anything about this. They listen to idiots that tell us we'd be like Russia and Belarus if we just ignore the ECHR, and not normal people who say that we'd also be like, oh, I don't know, Japan or Canada or Australia. Rishi Sunak does not want his legacy to be the controversy of the ECHR. And this is why we need a referendum on it. It would be good politics for Rishi to call a referendum on leaving the ECHR and to campaign for leave. Here's what Nigel Farage has to say about it.
Leave ECHR. I tell you what, wouldn't it be fun to have a referendum on ECHR membership? I'm quite looking forward to that.
Could he outflank Nigel there, perhaps? Here's the latest GBNews People's polling. 36% of voters say that they agree with leaving the ECHR if it stops Rwanda flights. 31% don't want to, and a further 34% say they don't know. 66% of Tory voters want to leave. So the fact is, really, that most people have only just started paying attention to the ECHR. Now, there is a case for sticking with it. But as far as I'm concerned, anything that gets in the way of border control, national security, counter-terrorism or sovereignty over climate policy can jog on. And I don't care what some anonymous Fruit Loop from a pathetic minnow nation thinks about that. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. I am joined by the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I have got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and author as well, Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'll start with you. Referendum on the ECHR?
Yeah, I like the idea of it. I mean, usually you would hold a referendum if basically the parties are split and can't agree. We might actually get into a position in which the Conservative Party advocates withdrawal from ECHR and the Labour Party advocates staying in. The reason we had a Brexit referendum was basically the Tory party couldn't make its mind up, so it had to bat it to the people. So I'm not against it being determined in a general election or on a party manifesto, but I will be firmly supporting leaving this ludicrous court, and I think this judgment on climate change is the most absurd overreach ever. Look, there are some circumstances in which you need international arbitration. If you've signed a trade deal with another country and there's some dispute about whether Britain's abided by the terms of that trade treaty, you need some independent adjudication. But you don't need a European court which is making up climate change policy in Switzerland based on the right for a private and family life. Whatever next? I mean, will it also start to decide that NHS waiting lists are too long, that houses in Britain are too expensive, that we're not spending spending enough on defence? These are political matters, not judicial matters.
That's the direction of travel, and that was why a lot of people voted to leave the European Union. And I do think that a lot of people assumed if we were going to take full control back of our laws, Adam, that we would probably be out of the ECHR as well.
Look, the same Article 8 is used by failed asylum seekers in this country, that we have to house them. So the ECHR is dictating a lot what goes on in this country. Even the British judge in Strasbourg has said this has gone beyond the remit of this court and is worried about it. You've named that we can't get rid of terrorists, we can't get rid of dangerous foreign criminals.
Unless we ignore them, which we're not prepared to do it.
Because of this court. Now, you know, we need to leave, and a lot of the arguments I get on Twitter are lefties that say, oh no, that'll leave us like a pariah state like Russia. But do countries like Australia, New Zealand or America, do they collapse because they're not in the ECHR? No, they don't. This is a load of scaremongering. We could leave this and we could still have human rights in this country.
But because they weren't in the ECHR, they created their own system. What is worrying is when you remove the system, we could, but what I'd be very concerned about is removing it without a bulletproof understanding of what we're replacing it with, which is why I think the referendum is the best idea. I think probably...
So you are, just to clarify that then, you are pro-referendum?
I would like an advisory referendum, not a binding one, and I'd like a minimum turnout and a minimum disparity. So if Brexit would have been a much clearer case if we had said we need a 65% turnout and it has to be 60-40 above for us to do anything, or for the government to say this is advisory, or just to say this is an advisory referendum, we would like to find out what you think, but that doesn't mean we have to do it.
But what's the
all
point
of those
of
things, because then people are having a say, and at the moment the polling varies, but generally speaking, a lot of people don't know what it is or what it does. A lot of people, but 53% of people still would say they wanted to remain in the ECHR.
I think one of the issues is, Mark, that for a lot of people, they've just not really thought about it. You know, and then they see things now like Rwanda deportation flights, when things are held in front of their face, like some of the fruity characters that we can't deport, and they realise some of the nationalities of some of the judges that are ruling anonymously at times in the dead of night, last minute, to dictate policy to us, and this climate issue that we've got. And I think people are now waking up to it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, to be honest with you, for viewers, Patrick, who don't follow the nuances of the European Constitution, they probably thought this was part and parcel of the EU. Actually, a good number of people. It's not. It's the Council of Europe, predates the EU, many more countries in it. And look, when it was invented, I think there was a place for it.
By Winston Churchill, we should flag. This is often sort of created as a left
that version is
Winston
nothing
Churchill
we
created
just had a Holocaust in Europe. There was a case for it. But circumstances have changed and institutions need to change with them. And I think if people did want to take back control, then leaving this convention is an element of that.
And look, I think we're seeing exactly what happened with the start of the EU. You know, it morphed into something it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't be. It's grown into a monster. The ECHR is now something that dictates law rather than interprets law.
It also protects human rights. A lot of what it does is incredibly valuable. We have maternity policies, we have fire doors, we have it overturned the gay rights in Northern Ireland. It's also written into the Good Friday Agreement. This is an important and positive piece of legislation. It exists for a reason. And what I will not stand for is to see once again this become a left-right. Lefties love the ECHR, righties hate it.
It's
so divisive to this country.
I understand that it's divisive, but unfortunately I think we are politically divided on it. Because
but we don't need to be.
Labour the chance for a referendum on this is now, isn't it? Because if we get a Labour government, we're not going to get one.
But I don't think we have time to have a referendum before the next election.
The
amount of time it takes to gear up. But I just think the damage that Brexit, not the actual European Union, the politics around Brexit were horrible to this country, and I just don't want to see that happen again.
You think he could? So you think that Rishi Sunak could conceivably call a referendum on the ECHR on the same day as the general election? That
would be quite a wizard wheeze, do you not think?
That's horrible.
The problem of him, I mean, I don't think it is horrible to consult people. The problem...
No, not consult people, to do it that way, deliberately, manipulatively.
Well, it's not manipulative.
It is.
As you said, there's not enough time. So if we could do it on
hold it in November, hold it now, hold it in November, that's likely.
Or they could have thought about it 6 months ago and not been complete idiots.
Well, we can't hold it tomorrow, can we? So we're probably going to need a 6-month lead-in to do it. And as I was saying earlier about the Brexit referendum, we're hearing that there are some Conservative cabinet ministers who would resign if we left ECHR.
Good.
So I think Sunak would find it difficult to put it in the Tory manifesto. And so for the same reason that the Conservatives needed to back the Brexit decision to the people, they may feel that they want to
I'm
back
sorry, but
this
that is really gross politics. That is career politics.
It's not career,
wanting to win an election over wanting to do things right and
don't put it in
properly.
the manifesto. Let the people decide.
Or let Labour have it. Let Labour have the referendum. Let whoever wins the next election do it.
What's the most important thing for you in this, Adam? Is it borders? Is it counter-terrorism? Is it climate? What do you want to have total sovereignty over?
I want to have control over safety of this country. I've got kids, so have others here. I want them to grow up in a safer world. Now, if we can't deport foreign criminals, foreign terrorists that want to blow us up...
But your chances of being involved in a terror attack are infinitesimal. Your chances of being impacted by human rights are much higher.
I don't care if it's a 1%
This is legislation that keeps workplaces safe. That's things people do every day.
And more climate change policies means more money from the taxpayer, from me.
What rights are you afraid of losing if we pull out of Strasbourg? There's
a wide variety, but the way that they supported the freedom of press is particularly important.
Excuse me, I'm allowed to sit on national television every single night and say this. We've got a free press.
Yes, and we are a member of the ECHR. They have the right to be forgotten.
It's not the ECHR that allows me to do my job.
It underpins it unquestionably, and it has been instrumental in cases.
Long predates the ECHR,
and it's been instrumental in cases
long before
the ECHR predates the internet. The press exists in a completely different way from before.
We could regulate these things ourselves.
We absolutely can't.
I believe that we would still be able to do a good job of upholding human rights.
But how long would it take to rewrite a constitution?
From San Marino telling us how
but
to do
who rewrites the constitution? How long does it take? And who gets oversight over it first?
I understand there are practical, yes.